Good morning. I'm Carl Lundgren, Green Party candidate for New York State Assembly in District 87 in the Bronx. I'm happy to sign the Green Party Peace Pledge, and I'm proud to be a member of a party for which peace is not just a word on a piece of paper, but is one of the pillars and values upon which our party was founded. The Green Party is the only true party of peace. And with that, I will sign the pledge. There you go. Have a peace-filled day and vote green.
Well, the Green Party had been saying we got to get U.S. troops out of all the Middle East for decades. And we're calling for deep cuts in military spending and putting that into the fight against climate change and against the growing inequality. And inequality kills. We have a 20-year life expectancy gap between our richest and poorest counties. And instead, we just had a National Defense Authorization Act that passed with the overwhelming support of both parties in Congress. And there was a proposal to make Donald Trump come to Congress that was supposed to be in that National Defense Authorization Act to say you can't go to war with Iran without coming to Congress first. And Congress defeated that provision. Now, a lot of Greens have got me to run for president. And sometimes I'm asked, well, what are you going to do your first 100 days? I'm not going to be president. I may be a peace vote. But I tell them in the first 100 days, I will be organizing. We need massive, disruptive, nonviolent resistance to the war machine, to the modernization of new nuclear weapons, this new nuclear arms race we're in the middle of, against the inequality. And to fight this war, this can't just be a one-off demonstration. That's right. The war radically escalated. When was it? Wednesday night or Thursday night? But this war has been going on. The peace movement was out there when George Bush was president, and when Obama went president, a lot of it went home. Where have we been? We've got to come back. We got to have a massive movement, or this war will go on. It will escalate, and it's a nuclear danger. Iran was doing war exercises in the Gulf, Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean last week with Russia and China. You know, the president carries around this nuclear football that supposedly he's supposed to push some codes. No, there are thousands of commanders all over the world, in the U.S. military, in the Russian military, who have authorization to fire nuclear weapons. And in a shooting war with a tactical nuke, somebody may get mad and fire it off. And if they think they're going to keep a tactical war tactical and not go strategic and be the end of all of us, they're crazy. So, look, we mobilize. I'm encouraged at the number of people out here today. But we can't just mobilize the usual suspects. We got to organize so next time we have more people. And after that, more people. And whoever's in office hears from us and can't sleep because we won't let them sleep. We won't let them have peace until we really have peace. Yeah! Let this just be the first step in a movement that finally ends this damn war that's been going on for decades. Thank you.
The Green New Deal not only turns the tide on climate change, it revives the economy, as the New Deal did during the 1930s, and importantly, it makes the friggin' wars for oil obsolete. And as others were saying before, that is how we managed to pay for this thing, two ways. One is that because you don't need these wars for oil, we can cut that dangerous, bloated military budget. Because that budget is not making us safer, it is making us more endangered. What has it done? Since 2001, we have spent $6 trillion according to a Harvard study, and sometimes they get it right, $6 trillion, that is $75,000 for every person in this room by the time we are done paying for the health care of the wounded soldiers. We will have paid $75,000 per household for these wars for oil since 2001. We will have killed 1 million people in Iraq alone, which is not winning us the hearts and minds of the Middle East, you can be sure. And we will have killed and maimed tens of thousands of US soldiers. And what do we have to show for it is the other thing. Exactly what we have to show is failed states, every one of them, mass refugee migrations, which are tearing apart the Middle East and which are tearing apart Europe, and worse, terrorist threats. And I want to underscore that because all we hear 10 times a day in the media is how we have to drop more bombs and shoot them up, and that's the solution to ISIS. Well, actually, who created ISIS? We created ISIS. And it wasn't just George Bush. I want to be clear because Barack Obama fought tooth and nail to keep the troops in Iraq as long as he possibly could. It was George Bush who established a deadline by which withdrawal had to happen because we lost the immunity for US soldiers. So this is a bipartisan disaster. I want to be clear. But it goes far back beyond ISIS. You may know, where did the whole jihad terrorist thing start? It started in Afghanistan as a scheme devised by the CIA and by Saudi Arabia in order to thwart the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. So we created this jihadi terror movement. It went on from the Mujahideen to the Taliban to Al-Qaeda and then to ISIS. With each turn of the wheel, the cycle of violence becomes more terrible, more unmanageable, more of a disaster. More of the same is not the solution. It's time to stop a foreign policy which is essentially a marketing strategy for the weapons industry. And we need to be able to talk about this. This is why the political predator parties, the Democrats and Republicans, work so hard to silence us because they cannot hold a candle to the facts, to the truth, and to the basic American values, which are values of peace and community and justice and human rights. This is what our foreign policy needs to be based on. So we call for, by the way, we call for a peace offensive. That's what we need in the Middle East. We need to put a weapons embargo on the Middle East. We are arming all sides of the conflict and benefiting from it. $100 billion in weapons to the Saudis alone in the last 10 years. So we are applying a flamethrower to the Middle East. We need a weapons embargo, which we can initiate. We need a freeze on the funding of our allies who are funding the training and the arming of so-called terrorist groups. With one hand, we are fighting terror. With the other hand, we and our allies are funding and arming and training terrorist groups. We started it, we can stop it, and we can do this now in our time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream tonight. Tonight, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Peace Action Committees and Coordinated Campaign Committees of the Green Party of the United States, I just want to welcome you all to our live stream. It's going to be a Green Candidate Speak Up for Peace event that we're hosting tonight. And this is very important because obviously, as many people know, or maybe a lot of people that are viewing this don't know, that the Green Party has four main pillars. It's for democracy, social justice, ecology, and peace. And peace is one of the pillars that I feel impacts a lot of the other pillars, and everyone and the planet with great impact. Just an example being that in our country, uh, the budget for war is so exponentially higher than any other budget that we have. It's more than schools and housing and any other thing that could help save lives in this country and around the world. We spend so much money for war, and we have candidates right now that are running for war. Whenever somebody talks about pulling out forces from a country, or you know interfering with elections in other countries, it's all about war, more military enforcement in those countries, military enforcement in our own country. So the fact that these candidates that we're presenting tonight signed a peace pledge to talk about, we're candidates that do not support war. We are candidates for peace domestically and internationally, and what that means. And just very, very honored to be here with you all tonight. A quick round of introductions. We have Barbara Kidney, Sherry Wells, Madeline Hoffman, Marcia Squire, and Rich Whitney. I'll let them all give a 2-minute introduction to let you all know who they are, why they're running, why it's important for them to run in their respective offices. So that being said, I want to keep things moving. I'm going to move to Madeline Hoffman to start off the night. Introduction. After each candidate goes through their introductions, we're going to do a roundtable discussion. So just let you know about the format that we're going to do tonight. So Madeline, would you mind kicking things off for us?
Oh, not at all. I'm ready and raring to go. My name is Madeline Hoffman, and yes, and I'm speaking. Can you not hear me? But you can't hear me? I'm speaking. Oh, something happened here?
Can hear you, but your video's frozen.
Okay. So my name is Madeline Hoffman. I'm speaking. I'll try again.
Okay, we're gonna go to Marcia Squire
my name is
real quick.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't understand. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. Can we go to Marcia Squire?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my name is Marcia Squire, and I'm running for U.S. Senate here in Michigan. It's my third race for U.S. Senate. Well, second time for U.S. Senate, and I also ran for U.S. House in 2016. I am running for U.S. Senate in Michigan because I believe that Michigan deserves a non-corporate pro-peace option on their ballots. The daughter I was pregnant with on 9/11 is now old enough to vote and old enough to go to the wars that we've been at her entire life. And I see no hope of change short of getting in this race myself to continue that conversation of ending the wars. I'm a pacifist by nature. I don't raise my hands in anger against anyone. I raised my 3 daughters in a non-violent household. And, I think that true change begins from within, and then it expands outward to the world. And so, we need to practice nonviolence in our own lives and emanate it outwards from there. And so I'm 45 years old. I'm at an age in my life where I'm ready to give back to my community in a bigger way, and give Michigan that peace option that frankly we all deserve.
There's some crosstalk going on. So, Madeline, I think that might be coming from you. So if you could mute, that'd be greatly appreciated. So next, I'm going to go to Barbara Kidney. Barbara, can you hear me? Okay, it looks like your video might. Okay, I was gonna say, looks like your. Oh, wait, hold up for a second. Sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, great. No, Marcia, thank you so much for that. And sorry, everyone, that we're having a little bit of technical issues, but we'll resolve that shortly. Once again, the people that are tuning in right now, this is a Green Party candidate speak up for peace event that we're hosting tonight. Once, like we always say, the Green Party is the only party for peace. It's the only party that I know of that has these four pillars, and peace being a very prominent pillar in it. For me personally, I consider peace, like I said, not just international, but also domestically. Domestically, it could cover everything from, military enforcement that happens at local police, and peace also comes from, domestic violence situations. There's different ways that people are affected by the environment that goes into the house, and then that creates stressful and violent situations at homes. So peace really means more than, for me, just countries battling each other. It also means how the effects of what hatred does around the world affects everybody. Just wanted to check. Yep, good. So it looks like we have Madeline Hoffman back. So Madeline, ready to start?
I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, good. So my name is Madeline Hoffman. I'm the Green Party of New Jersey's candidate for U.S. Senate. And I've spent 20 years working as the director of a nonprofit environmental organization that takes on companies responsible for toxic chemical pollution. I've also worked for almost 20 years as a director of a nonprofit peace organization. And those two issues and those two types of work, they come together with the Green Party of New Jersey and the Green Party of the United States and the Green Party internationally. Because you can't have a clean environment, a sustainable environment, you can't combat climate change unless these endless wars that the United States is involved in all around the globe, unless the United States stops those endless wars, unless the United States cuts its military budget by 50%. So at least 50%. So instead of $740 billion annually, it's $370 billion that will be taken out and redistributed for the kinds of peaceful purposes and community purposes that James was talking about. It has to happen. It has to happen soon. And it needs to address, during this pandemic, for example, we need to have additional money for healthcare. We need to have money for education. We need to have money for cancellation of rents and mortgages. We need to have money for universal basic income. 57 cents on every dollar, more or less, goes to the military, with only 6 cents going to education. So those priorities need to be changed, and changed quickly. And the Green Party is the only party that calls for that. The Democrats and Republicans just try to outdo one another in their attempts to be more aggressive, more bellicose, create wars where there don't need to be any. And we're already engaged in wars, endless wars: Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Israel, Palestine, Iran. We're threatening war against Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. This all has to stop. The United States has a lot to answer for. The situation with refugees coming across the border, that's all also a matter of U.S. economic and military intervention. We should join the global call for a moratorium on war and relief of sanctions, especially during the pandemic. And if we can do it for that period of time, we can do it for an infinite amount of time, and change the way the world, change the dynamics of world politics and climate change at the same time.
I'm going to jump to Barbara Kidney, please. Barbara, can you hear me?
I can start. All right. I'm in Michigan. I have run for the State Board of Education 3 times. They're every 2 years. And when I was describing our 4 pillars, I said that nonviolence was bullying, domestic violence, all the way up to war and world peace. And I finished running for those offices, thought I'd run enough, but I had learned so much about education. I wanted to find some place to use it, and our legislature is supposed to be adequately funding it. As I've been looking at budgets, not just the federal budget, but the state budget, the county budgets, all of them have 40% or more is some kind of violence type thing, whether it's war or it's the so-called criminal justice, where it's war against our own people. And those are such an imbalance that they need to be changed. And so those are some of the things that I want to do. Education, and of course, education should be peaceful as well. The criminal justice, the environment, and redirect is a wonderful word.
Candidate for Jackson County Board in Southern Illinois. However, my main interest here, it comes out of my work for Green Party Peace Action as one of the initiators and drafters of the peace pledges that you can find on our website. And my motive is this: it is crucial for Green candidates for public office, especially federal office, but not limited to that, to raise the issues of war and peace in every term. Other nations through subversion or funding opposition, etc., is what most sharply distinguishes us from the 2 corporate parties. And it is one argument that proponents of so-called lesser evil politics just can't answer or justify. I don't think that there is a lesser evil than war, and I will never vote for a candidate who supports war or that kind of interference in other nations' sovereignty, period. Militarism and war are the elephant in the room, or the elephant and the donkey in the room, that aren't being talked about in this campaign by the other parties, nor in the so-called national conversation led by the corporate media and most of the social media chatter that is still permitted on those platforms. Why? Because there's a bipartisan consensus of the 2 corporate parties in favor of militarism and war. The occasional exception of a Tulsi Gabbard and so on only helps prove the rule, helps to underscore the rule, and look at how she was treated by her own party and the corporate media. By the same token, this has to be a leading issue for Greens, and I think we can make an effective summary argument by remembering what I call the 3 I's. War is immoral, war is illegal, and war is irrational, at least from the standpoint of serving the public interest. Obviously, it does benefit the interests of our imperialistic ruling class and its political servants, which is why it persists. Why is it immoral? Well, that should be self-evident. Millions dead in the forever wars the United States has participated in. 2.4 million in the Iraq War alone. Some of these wars, we don't even have the numbers because they don't even bother counting. 37 million people displaced, tens of millions terrorized, tortured. All the other effects and impacts of war are involved. Illegal? Well, it's illegal under international law. And if you go to our peace pledges and look at the text and the links there, it's all explained there. The peace pledges are intended to be a learning exercise, not only for candidates, but also for voters. So I'd highly encourage voters as well as candidates to look at it. And irrational. $6.4 trillion spent in these wars that could have been spent on a Green New Deal, a national health service, canceling student debt. All the good and crucial things that Greens advocate are affected by the unconscionable waste of financial and human resources on militarism, war, and the so-called national security state. Every time that our opponents ask, well, how are you going to pay for it? we have a ready answer. Put a halt to militarism and war and get us that peace dividend that we were supposed to get when the Cold War ended in the early 1990s. Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to the roundtable discussion, if that's okay with everybody. And just wanted to, hello? It's good? All right, just making sure. Awesome. And all of you touched base on a lot of issues that are very important to me. And one of the biggest ones is what Rich sort of ended off with, where, and a couple of you touched base on too, where the country is always saying, oh, you want a Green New Deal, how are you going to pay for it? Oh, you want healthcare, how are you going to pay for it? And like I said before, there seems to be problems trying to help people in this country and around the world, but we have no questions on where money comes from when we're talking about killing people around the world. So just want to find out from you, if elected, what each of you would do with your position to, you know, probably put through some kind of policies to stop this thirst for war that we seem to have, and to actually create an environment of peace and also bring resources back to the country to help the local communities. So let me start. I'll go around with Madeline to start off with, if that's okay.
Of course, sure. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. So the first thing I would do as U.S. Senator is, just yesterday, the 50th person, not the 50th person, the 50th country in the world signed and ratified a treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. In 90 days, that treaty will become international law, even though the nuclear powers have not paid any attention to it, have not participated in it, and have ignored it. The United States needs to immediately sign and ratify that treaty and stop spending trillions of dollars on revamping and quote unquote modernizing our nuclear weapons arsenal, so that it's, right now the goal or the aim is to make it bigger and more powerful than it was even at the height of the Cold War that Rich mentioned a little while ago. So this would be my first action, is to take specific concrete steps towards getting that treaty signed and ratified, and getting the other nuclear powers or nuclear possessing countries to be part of it, because the rest of the world, the majority of people in the world, the majority of countries in the world understand the dangers of nuclear weapons, and we need to put an end to spending all that money on nuclear weapons, and that would free that money up for the kinds of programs that we've been talking about so far tonight.
Squire, future senator.
Yeah, that is a really great question. I have something that I like to call a GI Bill for all, with a community service option. You know, I think that we could really achieve the higher education goals that we have, publicly funded higher education and healthcare for all, if we expand it to include everyone with a community service option instead of military servitude. You know, I'm a lifelong civilian myself. My family is military. My dad's a retired police officer. And I just never understood it. I never understood why I'm a lover, not a fighter, so it's just not really in my wheelhouse to fight and argue. And, so I would like to see this GI Bill for all, because not only would it decentivize, the military option, but it would also, work towards a lot of communities being improved in, optional, like truly optional, where you can decide what kind of community service you want to do. If you want your community service to be military service, then fine. But I think that would go a long way towards bringing back a peaceful transition, into this modern era, away from barbarism, and more towards being a civilized planet that we should be here in the 21st century.
Sorry, Barbara. So we have to get your uh,
Well, is doing my homework for this. The next county over has the Warren Tank Plant, and quite a defense industrialization there. And so I looked up how much money government money from defense gets into that county. And then for comparison, I looked in Oakland County, which is where I live. Both of them are both north of Detroit. And I was astounded to find out how much more we are receiving government defense funds in my county. So this has led me to do some homework, and we really desperately need to start pushing Green New Deal jobs. It's one thing to talk about it, but if the only jobs our young people can get is going into the military instead of being homeless, that's wrong. One of the things I did a poster for, it said $100,000 per year per soldier, $36,000 per year for prisoner, $10,000 a year per student. So we really have everything upside down. We need to change what we spend what for. Now, at least the soldiers get better health insurance. They get single payer plan health insurance. So if we can pay it for the soldiers, and if Congress can get an elite plan too, we can do universal health care as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Rick?
$1 billion that's been spent on the forever wars could have been used to improve internet service. I'm going to make that point this particular evening. But behind the joke, there is a serious point, and that is we have this crumbling infrastructure, right? I mean, we keep hearing about it every freaking election cycle. And not only do we have a crumbling infrastructure, but it needs to be redone as part of a Green New Deal. So we have sustainable transportation, all these other good things that are part of the Green New Deal. So yeah, that's part of this. Now, as a candidate for local office, obviously, I cannot affect that directly if elected. Jackson County Board is not going to stop the Pentagon, right? But and this is in our peace pledge. We do have a peace pledge for state and local office, and what it emphasizes is raising public awareness, and that is something that, as a candidate or as an office holder at the local level, we can do a lot. Every time we are hurting, and our state and local governments are hurting for funds right now, we're being starved from being able to do the things that we need to be able to do. We got to keep pointing back at it. And I would remind folks of what happened after 9/11, when there were local resolutions against the Iraq War that were passed in I think, hundreds of cities. And the same thing with the protest against the Patriot Act around that time. Over 200 cities, as I recall, including the one I live in, passed resolutions against the Patriot Act. There are models for this. Passing resolutions is a way to raise public awareness. And we have resolutions in the Peace Pledge to oppose, these different acts of both military and economic aggression, resolutions to create nuclear-free zones as a way to call attention to the resurgent and very scary danger of the resurgent nuclear arms race, opposing military recruitment in our schools, or in the alternative, allowing peace organizations to have equal time to talk to the kids so they get both points of view and they learn a little bit of what the military is really used for. These are some of the things that we can do if elected to office, and that we can also raise public awareness of as candidates.
Until we get your video set, I'm going to. Oh wait, actually no, Barbara. So you're back? Yeah. Okay. So we're just going to go ahead with you. Sorry. So So Barbara, yeah, I didn't get your 2-minute intro. So first, would you mind giving the intro and then going right into the question regarding, what you would do if elected? What policies would you enact to, deter our thirst for war in this country? Please start with your 2-minute.
Valley of New York and Ulster County, and I'm running for State Assembly District 101, which is a very crazy gerrymandered district that has no intrinsic community identity. It's just gerrymandered, but it's been lovely to experience to travel it. If you want secret getaways in New York State, ask me. I know them now. And I'm running because I believe in the four pillars, and they're not real, right? They don't mean a thing unless we got the swing, and the swing means electing Greens to office, at least running for office, bringing the message. So that's what I'm doing. I'm incidentally also chair of Hudson Valley Green Party, and a professional psychologist. I am a peace psychologist as well. And what I would do, on a state level. So one thing I would like to do is bring to the attention of people how much New York State gets strained by the federal budget for war. Billions and billions of dollars leave the state for war and military endeavors. My platform has to do with tax reform and environmental, climate, public, and local fiscal health, which are all tied to the military drain, and also instituting ranked choice voting so we can get more Greens elected. I think, I fully agree with no justice, no peace, but also no peace, no justice. So as James made the point earlier on, all these things travel together. So some of my tax reform has to do with economic justice, which helps promote peace. And, planet environmental justice also promotes peace, and the military go against that very much. So I think that's what I'll say now about that. Did I answer all your questions, James, for now?
Yeah, definitely. Just one little addition to so as an assembly member, just to make it clear, what would you do to sort of either raise awareness or any kind of policies that you do? Like we did mention that there were some some initiatives that came around, some resolutions, that came around after September 11th. Like what would you do with the awesome power, as Nancy Pelosi would say, of having an assembly member seat?
Well, hello. Okay, so I think that, okay, so I define peace very broadly. I think your question, I would term your question, what would I do to combat, if I use that bad pun, combat militarism? What would I do to combat combat, And I think one is getting the word out, is how much of the New York State coffers are drained by militarism, both for the military and police military types of things. But I look at peace more broadly myself, and I think when we're pillaging and raping the planet, we're also doing non-peace. So some of my, initiatives would be for planet, for environment. I also think that when we get into financial obesity, where, this came up on a NAACP talk that I was just on before this, the people are doing poorly financially because of COVID, but in reality, the billionaires are making out like bandits. They are, their wealth has gone sky high. So we need to be taxing those people. That's like a natural redistribution of wealth. You don't need all that freaking money. So that needs to be redistributed to the people, and the people who aren't making that much don't pay taxes at all necessarily, or pay very little on what little surplus they have. So to me, that that economic justice also brings about a type of peace. So
Much. No, that's perfect. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm sort of going to ask a combined question, and I'm so bummed that we lost Madeline. And hopefully she's able to join again. But as we're talking about a lot of these issues, and we know that the Democrats and the Republican parties. Oh wait, Madeline's coming. Great. I'm doing a combined question for you guys because I know we're going to have a time limit on this. The Democratic or Republican parties, get all the media exposure, get all the attention, and their saber rattling just never seems to go unchallenged. Even right now, as we're trying to run our Green Party candidates for peace and ecology and social justice and whatever, people are just flocking to the blue no matter who concept, not realizing that that blue was the one that voted for the Iraq War, and voted for many other, and even during the campaign season is pledging to increase the military budget and not put a ban on fracking. So one of my questions for you is related around, what can we do? What can we do to make this change? What can we do to, I guess, deter, like I said, pull the public's perception away from, there's no problem with going to war with other countries. How can we let people know that the lives of people in other countries matter as much as we say Black Lives Matter here? When I was in Black Lives Matter marches back in 2015 and whatever, our chants were always that, from Chicago to Afghanistan, it's like Black Lives Matter all around the world, and people complain about immigrants coming to this country, and they don't realize there's immigration from those countries because of the devastation we've created through war, through environmental destruction that we've sort of talked about briefly on here. So, it's really a big question for you guys, because I'm looking at you as the hope, to a future where our children will grow up. Like right now, it just seems we're on a path to destruction. So I really want some solid things that people can take away. And as far as, what will you be able to do to, turn this perception that war is fine? I'll start with Madeline.
That's a very challenging and difficult question, James. What can we do to turn things around? One of the things that we can do, we must do, is work with the people who are already trying to stop this. This is not a task for politicians alone. It's a task for people who are in the streets, the Black Lives Matter people who are protesting every week, or the pro-immigrants rights people who are protesting every week. Yesterday, I was at a demonstration in New Jersey of both Black Lives Matter and immigrant rights groups, and the message was abolish ICE and Black Lives Matter, and that the people speaking were saying if the United States could deport African Americans, they would. And the African Americans were brought here against their will, but it's the same fight, it's the same struggle. And so I think that our role, whether we win or lose on Tuesday, our role is to continue to make those connections. Our role is to continue to talk about things like defunding the police and defunding the military, making the connections and making the links to where the money is being spent, how the money is being spent, and how it should be done differently. So we certainly can't rely on the Democrats or Republicans to do it. But we can't let the Democrats and Republicans shut us up either. We can't let them say, "Oh, don't bring up that issue. It's a distraction." We have to be able to say, no, it's not a distraction. It's key to everything that's going on in our country and around the world. And we're going to keep saying it and talking about it and joining with people to say it and talk about it until changes are made.
So, Marcia?
Yeah, so I think as a voter, I had a very small voice when it came to my feelings about war. But as a candidate, I have a bigger voice. I have a microphone now. I answer League of Women's Voters and Ballotpedia and the Detroit Free Press, voter guides. And, my microphone might not be as big as the Democrats and Republicans' microphone because I have no corporate sponsors, but that's on purpose that I have no corporate sponsors. And it's still bigger, like I said, than when I was just a voter. And so, we do have local winners for the Green Party. And, even though I myself am running for a statewide office, I like to kind of consider myself one of the spokespersons for the Green Party platform, and especially including peace. One of the things that I've encountered on my campaign trail that I have found the most like melting my heart is I live in a Chaldean area that is heavily Chaldean, which is Christian Arabs from Iraq. They moved here after we took out Saddam Hussein, and it was a secular nation at the time, and they were being protected by Saddam, and they ended up coming here. It's not the same as Dearborn. It's Sterling Heights. It's in a different county near Detroit, but it's 80% Chaldean, and I have a lot of support from the Chaldean community because of my views on the Iraq War. And even the Mandaean community, they're even older than the Chaldeans. I inspired a guy to register to vote last time so he could vote for me. And this time he's voting overseas from Sweden for me again. He's so excited. And it ties in when I get a group of veterans. I had a Vietnam thank me last week running. He literally said, "I want to thank you for your service, miss." A Vietnam vet thanking me. That just melts my heart. Like, we're so used to "thank you for your service, sir." It really got to me that he was offering to help me take my stuff back to the car just to give himself the opportunity to thank me for running. And, he's like, "We were took into those wars based on lies after 9/11, and we'll probably never know the truth about 9/11. And I really appreciate you talking about the budget, and I am the only candidate for U.S. Senate in Michigan that's even talking about it. So even though I may or may not win, I at least keep the conversation in the topics, so they don't just get pushed under the rug."
So much for that answer. I'm going to move to Sherry.
All right. Once we get elected, I like the idea of resolutions. And so I wrote that one down. When you see my head down, I'm making notes on what the rest of you are saying to get my ideas. And resolutions for more peaceful ways of doing things all over the place. And some of it would be budgetary. But the justice part, you bring in the criminal thing. But one of the things that is just most important to me is that young people have alternatives. And when I was in high school, I did an essay on community service, and I thought that was a good idea. I've studied about the Civilian Conservation Corps. I don't know why the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers, wasn't used to settle the Flint water crisis, to put new pipes in. What wonderful training for all those. We have. Even the Department of Defense says that climate change is a defense problem, a security problem. And so they can have the people who we employ in the military can be working on some of these climate change defense situations. So there's a little rewording, a little redirecting that needs to be done. And some of that can be done from a state legislature too.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to move to Rich Whitney.
Yeah, thank you, James. You posed the $6.4 trillion question, right? How do you break through not only the stranglehold on media attention by the two corporate parties, but the corporate media itself just ignoring the peace movement? as if we don't exist, right? And this fuels this public perception that, oh, where's the peace movement? There is a peace movement. Just because the corporate media don't talk about it doesn't mean it isn't there. But it is a tremendous challenge to try to break through the media blackout of this issue. And I don't have any simple answers, but I think that there are two things that we have to work on. One, and this is what we're already doing. Good Greens are activists all the time, right? It's not just at election time. We get accused of that, but in fact, most Greens are involved in movement work. That's one of the things that distinguishes our party, and many of us are involved in the peace movement. One of the things that Green Party Peace Action is working on is trying to bring together the literally hundreds of peace groups in the country into a more effective coalition. There is the United National Anti-War Coalition, which is on the right track. There are groups like Veterans for Peace. Black Alliance for Peace is doing tremendous work. Highly recommend checking them out. But we also have to encourage people to look at the peace media. There is peace media that's out there. Don't rely on what the corporate media tells you, because number one, they lie or they distort the truth. They omit the truth, and they don't cover the peace movement. But if you go to places like Popular Resistance, Consortium News, the Gray Zone Project, antiwar.com, Black Agenda Report, great work done by Margaret Kimberly and Ajamu Baraka and others at that website. Sanctionskill.org to learn about the sanctions issue. You can start becoming better informed. We have to encourage people to make a regular habit of going to our media, because the corporate media is not going to do it for us. And we have to build that movement so that we're strong enough so that eventually the corporate media and the two corporate parties can't ignore us any longer.
Great. Thank you so much. And Barbara, how's your connection doing right now?
I hope it's fine.
Okay. Well,
All
good. We
right.
can hear you, so let's go for it.
Answering the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, how to start answering this question, right? Because as a citizen, there's certainly many things I did to consciousness raise, right? One is that when people make remarks that show ignorance about war and peace, I can speak up, just as I do, because unfortunately there's occasion as a white person to speak out against microaggressions involving race. Like, we're all in the room, as white people, so somebody thinks it's okay to say something racist. So I speak up about that. It doesn't make me popular, but who cares, right? So I also speak up about things that promote war, and violence. When somebody tells me that their child has signed up for the Air Force, I tend to say, oh, I'm sorry. My condolences. I hope they stay safe. I hope they don't have to kill anyone. I don't click my heels about it. I take on the lie that everybody who's in the military is a hero and that they are serving our country. Well, I think the farmers and the teachers and the nurses and nurse aides are serving the country more than people who join the military. They may think they're serving the country, right? But they're serving the military industrial complex. They're serving billionaires. That's what they're doing. And they're willing to kill for money. This is not good. And I understand some of them are desperate and some of them are duped, but that's not good either. So I've taken on the public library in my area. It didn't make me popular with everybody. It made me popular, I think, with some, because the public library was promoting with our tax money, sending letters to our military, which can be fine, but it was under the premise that they're all heroes. It was under some kind of like Republican conservative thing, that's wonderful what we're doing. So, I speak up about that. If elected, as people have made the point here, when you're running for office, and amazing, like if you're actually elected, you get a bigger megaphone. So while running for office, I can use the megaphone. Whether I win or lose, I'm now better known in the community. And my run has been well received where I am. You wouldn't think like, oh, she's no. I mean, people are like, wow, she's the local candidate. They like what I'm saying. So I'm getting just as much support and maybe more than some of the other people. So if I lose race, I can still do my claim to fame and continue to do what I've done. The groups I've worked with is Co-Pink. I brought Medea Benjamin to town with a couple of other people. We brought her to town for 2 weeks a few years back. We've done funerals for drone victims under Obama. We've done solemn parades to the streets of New Paltz for drone victims. So, we've taken it on, and now with more fame that I've gotten for running for office, we can do more of this kind of thing and maybe get even more attention. But, what I've run up against is that a lot of Americans don't believe this when I tell them about, drones, U.S. drones bombing ambulances who are trying to save the survivors. They think I'm like QAnon. And I have to say, well, go to Amnesty International, Game of Drones. There's a lot of education that has to be done. But we have to keep doing it.
Is go around for a quick 30 seconds to each of you to let people know how to find out more about your campaign, because you're amazing people. I mean, I actually, people know that when I get into these situations, I get very emotional and tears come out, especially when Marcia said, as a voter, my voice was small, but as a candidate, I have so many more people I could reach. I have a much louder voice. So I just want to have you guys go around and let everyone know how they'd find out about you. Oh, she's that looks inappropriate, but I get what you're doing. So start with you, Marcia.
Yeah, people, if you want to learn more about me, this is my third race. So all you have to do is Google me or look me up on your favorite local internet search engine, MarciaSquire. I'm also on YouTube as well, because I am a big supporter of independent media and the new Fourth Estate. So a lot of my interviews are on smaller channels, but all you have to do is type in my name into the search bar and you'll see all 3 different campaigns I've done, and with the consistent message of anti-war and pro-peace and pro-healthcare and education. The message is the same. I've got over 40,000 people under my belt now that agree with me here in Michigan, and I'm hoping to increase that, and I would hope to count on your vote for peace in November. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Madeline, would you mind sharing information how people could find out about your campaign?
Of course. My website is hoffmanforsenate.com. That's the word 4, not the number 4. And you'll see my entire platform there. I share so many of the same ideas as other people here on this panel, but I just want to end with that quote that I'm sure many of you have heard, that that peace rather is not just the absence of war, it's the presence of justice. And there's a lot of work that we need to do in that direction, both at home and overseas. And I call on my opponent, Senator Cory Booker, to join me in calling for these kinds of changes. Otherwise, one party machine with 2 monikers will rule the day, and we can't have that any longer.
Great.
Thank you for having me on this panel.
Oh, thank you for participating. Sherry? Oh, you're muted. Sorry. That's okay. I do that all the time.
Well, it's better to be muted than having any noise in the background. Although that meow was sweet. I did homework in preparation for this. I read through the GPAC's program 2 or 3 times. I sent it to our Peace Action of Michigan, whose board I was on, until I decided I could be more effective doing just about anything else, because it's same old, and we've got to do more things. There are more issues on the GPAC's platform than I've ever heard in 2 years of being involved with the Peace Action. And that's very impressive. And there was some positive things in there, not just what we're complaining about. So good work, folks. www.sherryawells.net, like network. Sherry is spelled like the wine, which would probably be a good thing right now. And A is for adorable. and anti-wars and anti-war as well. So sherryawells.net, and there's many things about many issues. I've had a wonderful crew of Greens working with me, and it's amazing what we can do if we get a whole lot of us working together to help. It's not just each candidate, it's the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And go to Rich.
For my final shout out, I do want to acknowledge my own website. We actually have several people running for county board in Jackson County. Folks can find it at jcgreens.org. But I'd also like to recognize and shout out to our other great candidates in Illinois who could not be on this program. If people go to ilgp.org for Illinois Green Party, ilgp.org, they'll find links to all of our candidates. David Black running for U.S. Senate, he's signed the Peace Pledge. We have another candidate for Congress, Tom Wilda. We have a great candidate for state rep, Randy Auxier, down in Southern Illinois in my neck of the woods, running. And also a little shout out to GPAX itself, gpax.gpus.org, and highly recommend, tuning into that every once in a while and seeing what else we got coming your way. Stay tuned to the peace movement, the other sites I mentioned earlier. There's a lot going on, and there are more of us than we think.
Great, thank you. And Barbara?
Yeah, so my campaign website is Barbara, and that's spelled BARBARA for FORAD101.com. Barbara for AD101.com. And also up on the GPNY website, go to GPNY/candidates. You'll find all of us. I believe there's about 11 people running. So that's where you can check us out.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for participating tonight. Just want to encourage people that are watching this, or people that know other people that are considering not voting in their local elections or their presidential elections, whatever, that, if you're disgusted by the Democrats or Republicans and you just don't feel like voting, voting for one of those candidates that you don't like, that you don't truly feel represents you, is a wasted vote. That's the only wasted vote in elections. Voting for someone that you do not fully respect and think's going to honor you. As Malcolm X said, you're a political chump if you're going to throw your vote to somebody that does not represent you. So, sorry, I had to quote Malcolm because he was smart. He said that over 50 years ago, and nothing has changed. So for anyone that really wants to make their vote count, really wants to see a change in the world, or really wants to save our planet before 2030, look at these candidates. Go to gp.org. Find out more about the Green Party. Find out more about our platform. Donate some money if you can. If you don't have money, donate some time. Spread the word. These are amazing candidates, and you need all the support you can give them. And I'm just honored to have been your host for the night and to have led this discussion with them all. So thank you for tuning in, and please share this video and let everybody know that there are good people out there that are trying to fight for you. So thank you.
Hey.